Money is love, and love is an energy, and energy is abundant. Energy is everywhere. Money is an exchange of love. It is where the love energy is flowing, and it is always available to come back to you at any time that you choose to shift your energy into a place of love. And that love will come back. And we have to love our money, whether it's a ton of it or a little bit of it. Love the money you have. Love all the things that you have. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Power in the Pause podcast. How are you doing today? Do not forget to hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss a single episode, because I release one every single week. And I'm so happy that you have decided to join me in today's episode, because I am here with a new and amazing dear friend, Sarah Walton. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hello, Wendy. I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me here.
Oh my God, I am so incredibly excited, honored, insert every word in the dictionary that is related to excitement, to talk to you today about a topic that I know my audience is incredibly triggered by, which is the word money. And you guys, we are going to talk today about why money triggers us and how it is that we can start shifting it. And Sarah is the perfect person to help us do this today. So let me share a little bit more with you all about Sarah before we dive into our conversation today. So Sarah is a business coach and sales expert who's been featured on the Today Show. She speaks at women's conferences all over the world and has helped hundreds of women start and grow businesses that they love. She's the voice behind the Game On Girlfriend podcast and the face of Sarah Uncut on YouTube, making her the go-to source for no-nonsense business coaching and real life mind-blowing abundance. Through her successful coaching business, she was designed to put more money in the hands of women. Sarah has transitioned from just being another coach to being a change maker. And she says it beautifully when she says it's time to put more money in the hands of more women. And Sarah is all in, as am I. So, my dear,
Yes.
I would love to hear how it is that you found your power in the pause.
Oh my goodness. I feel like there's been several pauses, to be honest, but the one that really sticks out to me was in my last corporate job. I was making a redonkulous amount of money. I had my beautiful corner office, like with a tree and everything. And I was sitting there one day after my daughter had called and said, "Mommy, I miss you." I was like, stick a fork in my eye. Ow. Right. That just was an awful feeling for me. And in that moment, I remember hearing the clock tick in my office, and I was feeling the seconds of my life tick away. And I was like, this is not what my life is for. And that was the moment I got up, and there's like a Sarah-shaped hole in the wall, right? But I like got up and walked out, and I went straight to my boss and I said, "Here's how you can fire me." He's like, "I will never fire you." I'm like, no, you will. And here's what we're going to do. And I restructured my entire department and said, "Look, go find someone else who's going to be great for this position." And he did. I was like, I'm done. And then, in those moments, I was the breadwinner when I did that. And so there were moments in the middle of the night where it's quiet. I think every human being knows this feeling, right? Where I was like, what in the actual hell have I done? Like, this is so scary, and I don't want to have to go back, and I have got to figure this out. I mean, talk about building the plane after I've already jumped off the cliff, right? Like, it was just fly by the seat of my pants, but I knew I couldn't do it for another second. And in that came, I think, a deeper understanding of my own strengths that I got pretty clear from a young age. I'm here to explain really complex situations, ideas, ideologies, psychology in ways everybody goes, "Oh no, I get it now. People have said that to me for now. I understand." And really honing in on that, the fact that that was my gift, and that if I was going through this, I knew other people were going through it as well. And for me being, a senior executive, always the only woman in the room, except for like the head of HR, and sitting there thinking as we're doing financial projections, or we're talking about morale in the business, or pick your thing. And I'm like, why am I the only woman in here? This is like fourth grade math. This is not some esoteric proprietary thing. There is no reason that other women aren't in here with me. And I think that kind of clicked. as I quit and I got nervous about money and I was like, what have I done? Like, I just turned off a massive spigot, right? Like, oh my God. So how do I deal with this? And how do I take all those skills I had? I call it my street cred business school, right? Like I was in startups in New York City. I was doing all this. Like I have like this awesome understanding of how businesses run and why they run well and when they don't. And a lot of the times it's like the mindset of, the founder or the leader. And like, how can I teach that? And how do I work on myself with this at the same time? And that really became my superpower. I can look at somebody and see where the blocks are. I don't know how, I don't know why, it just comes through. And then they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, it's my power. That's what I do. And so it's really been such a joy for me being raised incredibly poor by a single mother to moving all the way to New York City, being the only woman in my family. I have 65 cousins. At the time that I graduated, I was the only woman who had a college degree. And then flipping that around and turning that into something that would help other women not go through what I went through as a child and what my mother went through in raising us. It's just kind of felt really full circle. And it all started in that moment in my office with the clock ticking.
So powerful, Sarah. And I have to tell you that story. When I read that, you guys, this story is on her website. And when I read that about you, it was so relatable to me because that moment for me was when I had a complete out of body experience when words came out of my mouth that I was like, what the hell did I just do? And it was that I wanted a divorce and I was ending my 16-year marriage and my entire financial stability life. And it was one of those, like, I literally walked out and went, what the hell did I just do? And I think so many of us can relate to having those particular moments. And similarly, the thoughts about money, right? I feel like, there's one thing most of us worry about on a daily basis. Money is probably number one. I think that there are so many people who have these beliefs about money, right? Yeah. And the beliefs are not necessarily true. So I would love for you to share kind of what you have learned and what you hear most often are some of these myths that people have about money and how that relates to and ultimately shapes our ability to create abundance in our life.
Yeah. Yeah. This is such a good question. And there's kind of a two-parter, if that's okay. So there's like my own personal experience. I was in the Poconos. I was going to be a keynote speaker at a conference and I'm practicing and I'm walking around this stupid cabin going, okay. And I'm talking about, and I kept hearing, I know people are like, is she schizophrenic? I don't know. But I kept hearing this voice say, money is love. And I'm like, money is love. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Like, I was so annoyed by this thought. I was like, what in the actual hell does that mean? And so I kept pushing it away and it just kept coming. And I was like, all right, okay. I'm like, what the heck does that mean? And I had remembered one of the startups I did work at, one of our clients was Marianne Williamson. And I spent God knows how many hours in the booths with her. And then listening to some of her old tapes, I ran a monthly call with her, fielding questions. Like we were really close. I spent a lot of time with her. And there was the whole, I've never read The Course in Miracles, so I can't pretend to be an expert and I never would. But I know that the main philosophy is there's only two emotions. There's love and there's fear. And that love's job is to stoke fear so that fear can be healed. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, it's that kind of love. It will stoke every fear you have until it's healed. And as soon as I kind of had like the penny dropped on that, I was like, oh, okay, well, I can get behind that, right? Like it was like, I see. And it's like we watch people, right? Lottery winners is like the example everybody uses, right? But it's like, get rid of this as fast as you can. It hurts too much. There's too much. I'm insecure. What if people only want me for my money? What if someone's trying to hurt me? What if someone's going to try to take this away? And all of our value, when our value is held outside of us, it's fragile. And so until that idea is healed, that you are whole and complete and here, regardless of what the bank account says, it's very scary to handle money. And I just had somebody write that on YouTube. I did a YouTube video about how money is an effect, not the cause, right? Like you look at your bank account, that's a result. That's not a cause of your unhappiness. That's a result of something. And she wrote in the comments, she goes, but I'm really happy and I'm poor. Explain. And I was like, that's actually brilliant because you've learned that your value is internal And if you choose to make money, that's freaking fantastic, but it's never out there. It always starts in here. And the ability to make money starts inside as well, to make money well and to make money without fear. You have to be healing yourself or you won't be able to hold it. And we've all had that experience, right? There's a big influx of money and suddenly it's gone. You're like, I don't even know what happened. Watching that and say, what did I need to heal? If I had wanted to keep it in my world a little bit longer, it's not like it disappeared. It just moved into somebody else's world. And that's the other myth about money I'll get to in a sec. But this idea that you'll get rid of it until you've healed something that you've been resisting. And I've really found this to be true. It's unbelievable. People are always like, how are people doing this in your Abundance Academy? And I'm like, they're healing. And once you're healed, your confidence increases. And then when you go out and you go start living your life, all of a sudden you don't need another belt. It's not like, I shouldn't buy another belt. Like, it's not that feeling at all. It's like, dude, I have like 5. They're awesome. I love them so much. And it comes from such a place of confidence and grounding. All of a sudden you look in your bank account and there's a lot more money than there used to be because you are grounded in healing. So that's one myth, is that money will solve problems. Does it solve some? You bet your ass it does. It is the most powerful tool we have access to today. That's just the way our society is set up, but it has nothing to do with your worth or your value on this planet. You are a human. We can put no value on that. That's impossible. So that's a big myth, is that money will make me happy. No, you make yourself happy, the money comes. Obviously, you need a strategy and you have to design that and you have to learn how money works, but it's always an inside job first. And then the other 3 myths that I really love, this comes from a book called The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist. And the 3 myths are, there's not enough, absolutely inaccurate. I always say, go to an amusement park and look in the garbage cans. There's enough. There's not enough. More is better. No, we've all had that experience of like, you buy the house, you buy the thing, and then you have to buy more stuff for the thing. And then there's more stuff and you're like, what the hell did I do this for? Right? More is not always better. More is just more. Right. And if there's something you want, go get it. Oh my gosh, that's great. But don't do it because you think you're supposed to, because more is better. It's actually not. Right. And you cannot win that game. Because even if you have $100 million in the bank, 100,000,001 is better. So you can never be satisfied. You can never rest. You can never feel secure, which is kind of why people say they want money, is they want to feel secure, but then they're constantly afraid of it. And then the third myth, which kind of keeps the other 2 myths sort of in place, is that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is with money. You know, the bad people have the money. The bad people pour it in here. They do that. They do this. Money corrupts you. That's just the way it is. To really start to challenge that, anytime we hear ourselves, whether we're spending or saving, it doesn't matter, the exact same side of the same coin, but that there's an idea there that like, well, that's how this works. You save money and then your car breaks down. That's what happens. That's how this, it's like, where did you learn that? Who taught you that? Right? Because that's not true for everybody. But why would it be true for you and not true for someone else? There are a lot of universal laws at play here. And so questioning what we think is just so about money is one of the most important things that we can do. Because again, I'm going to go back to the fact it is never more than 4th grade math. Tops.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't understand how important the inner work is and spend most of their energy and time on the outside stuff. You know, part of it too, and I can relate to this. I mean, I know that I came into this world with generational money trauma, right? Like, I am granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, both sides of my family, and blending in was safe. And even when my grandparents, accumulated their ability to create a great life for themselves and my mom and my sister and I, it was still very understated. It was very much like we have to blend in. We can't let everybody know. And so, part of my passion in doing the inner work has to do with the generational trauma that I think a lot of us also inherit. And I think that that's where some of these beliefs about money come into play. And so from your perspective, I'm curious because, the methodology that I use with my clients, for example, I do a lot of digging and energy work called theta healing with my clients to kind of uncover and help them to heal and shift these beliefs. What do you think are some of the keys that you work with your clients on to help them to sort of unlock, their own abundance codes, let's call them, and, how is it that they can what's one step that you help them with, or however many you want to give and share on today's episode? That's up to you. But Like, what is a key or two that you help them with in that internal work for them to be able to unlock that door?
Yeah. Oh, such a good question. And we could be here for about 3 hours. But I think, one that I found to be really effective for most people, and I love asking this question, and I just asked it, which is, where did you learn that? Who
Right.
taught you that? And remembering a lot of the time, it was something that was role modeled. It could have been, I mean, look at the TV shows that are out there now, right? Like Billions and all this, like they're such jackwagons. Anybody who's
Yeah.
wealthy is a complete jerk, right? Like it's just,
Right.
they go hand in hand, right? So did you learn that there? So there's that initial asking of just that.
Right.
And then the other thing I do with people is we really talk about the collective unconscious when it comes to women and money, especially, right? It is, we can talk about laws, right? As a collective. So, we've been hearing this more and more. I've been saying it for years. I'm so happy to see it really surfacing now. Like women couldn't get a credit card or a mortgage until 1976. That's my lifetime, barely, but my lifetime, right? Like,
Yes.
this is real stuff. We were meant to be handed from father to husband or from father to brother, but we were like a liability. And so this idea that women are great with money, that we can handle it really well, there's still sort of a collective unconscious in there that is telling us we're not, right? You're really not. I mean, look at Taylor Swift giving away all her money. I mean, what? Right? There's that energy can kind of come into our day-to-day conversations of like,
Right.
all the way back to I Love Lucy. My grandmother used to do this too, where they'd hide their purchases and run away. And so, because the big bad daddy husband can't find out, right?
Right. Or you get cash out at the market, right? Like you take an extra $20 that you pocket for yourself, right?
That story is so common, Wendy.
Right.
I'm so glad you brought it. I know people do it all the time.
Yep.
All the time. It's like, what is
Still, but still
all the
now
time.
people do
Yes.
it. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just dealing with a client like last week, right? She's like, I did it again. I'm like, okay, what is happening with the fear, right? So we look at that and understand there's a message we receive loud and clear, which is you don't get money, I do, right? And I don't care who the I do is. It could be anybody. I mean, people have this with their sisters, right? Like it doesn't always have to be a guy or anything like that, but there is a pounding that happens to our subconscious. And this idea that we're not okay with money. Money isn't for us. We're not supposed to handle it. We don't get it. We're bad with it. And so we do a lot of work on what those are and what happens that's so great, right? Inside the brain physiologically. And I think this is like, I love teaching this. I think it's so cool. So our brain in our body uses about 80% of our body's power on a daily basis, right? That's a lot of freaking power, right? So its job is to constantly get more and more efficient inside the brain. And so what it will do is it will start to create neural pathways. Now, if you guys can't see me, I'm bringing the tips of my index fingers together, right? And these neural pathways touch, and pretty soon they're just instantly connected. Now, we humans really like the feeling of dopamine, which again, people are talking about more now, but it's the, oh my God, I found it drug,
Quick fix.
right?
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, right?
Got your fix.
And yes, exactly. It's like why we play Candy Crush. Like, oh my God, I got 3. Like that's a dopamine hit. And
Right.
dopamine was originally designed to keep us alive because like, let's say the orange tree that you wanted to
Right.
walk to was 3 miles
Right.
away.
It's
Well,
survival.
yeah, you'd get a reward for plucking the orange, right? And your brain's
Right.
like, oh, thank God. And then the next day when you're like, really, I got to walk 3 miles, you're like, oh, but when I pluck it, I'm going to get a reward, right? And now it's all messed up because we're getting that thing all over the place, right? So in order to keep these neural pathways running and running efficiently, what happens is when we start a behavior, a thought, a belief, anything, right? When we start it, by the time we complete the action the thought started, we'll get a dopamine hit. So if you have the thought, go get a cookie, you won't have a dopamine hit until the first bite. Awesome. Okay. Let's say the thought is, oh, I need to run to Amazon real quick and buy more stuff. That will make me feel better. You get the dopamine hit when you hit that yellow button. Okay. Once these neural pathways start forming and connecting, the brain looking for efficiency all the time will release the dopamine when you have the thought. So now you're not even doing anything and you're getting flooded. And that makes you act so fast. You're like, whoa, have you ever talked to your mom on the phone and then you're like in front of the pantry and you're like, how did I get here? Right? Like it's like so wired to have you seek that dopamine just by thinking. And it's really hard to undo that. So once those neural pathways are formed, like I'm really bad with money, I have to sneak this out, right? It takes a bit of time to pull that apart physiologically inside your brain. So it takes 67 days of not completing from action to thought, 67 days, right? It takes 67 days just to move the dopamine back to the middle of that transaction inside your neural pathway. And then it takes a full 90 days to move it all the way back to having the bite of the cookie, all the way back to completing an action before the dopamine hit is given. So when we're talking about beliefs, subconscious beliefs that have been in there for so long, you got to give yourself some time. Physiologically, this isn't even you. You can't be fast at this.
Right.
You can't break the rules.
Right.
It's like a broken bone takes as long as a broken bone takes, right? It's sort of like that. So if you can pull that apart and start to notice, holy schmuckers, I'm really bad with money. Oh my God. Whoa. Oh my God. Last month we actually had $300 more than we were supposed to have. How did I do that? That's amazing. Actually, I was able to hire someone in the business and keep going. I'm actually really good with money. Oh my God, our profitability is up. Like you start to notice these things where you can slow down that neural pathway, but it does take 90 days before it actually pulls apart from itself and starts to disappear. The rub is, since it was there once, it's easier for it to go back. And so it's this constant like awareness of, oh, that's weird. I just shopped on Amazon for a half an hour and bought a bunch of crap I don't need. Oh my God, what happened? And we can move back to the trigger, the initial trigger, which could have been a fight. It could have been a bad comment on social media. It could have been your Aunt Gertrude called and was rude, like whatever it was. And we can start to figure out what those triggers are and figure those out before the action gets taken.
It's perfect. And it's a great explanation. And it's even making me it's making me have this thought, the world that we live in, right? This instant gratification world that we live in. To me, I think that it is creating a hustle culture, which I can't stand. And it's also creating a mindset where we focus on, because of that we focus on everything we don't have. Yeah. And instead of looking at everything that we do have, right? It's never enough, right? And to your point, it's like, it doesn't matter how many cookies you eat. It doesn't matter how many times you click the yellow button on Amazon to buy stuff. It isn't going to satiate whatever it is that you are seeking in that moment. So what is a first step that someone can take to break free of this dopamine hit for them?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. I love this because it's instant and it's free. So I love talking about this. It's so good. So it's kind of like a 3-step process here. Okay. So the first step is, let's say you're in a moment where you're starting to notice you're jumping on to online shopping, or you jump in your car and suddenly you're at Neiman Marcus or Nordstrom and you're like, what happened? Right. You find yourself in those moments is immediately wiggle your toes inside your shoes. That sounds insane. I know, but it stops the process and nobody knows you're doing it, right? You can do it in a meeting when you're scared, or if you're pitching or you're about to get on a sales call. I always tell people, just wiggle your toes inside your shoes. And most people are doing it now. And they're like, oh my God, I'm in my body. It's like the coolest thing. It takes 2 seconds. It's totally free. You just have to remember to do it. And so you wiggle your toes inside your shoes, right? And this is a great thing to do too if you get a surprise bill or something goes wrong, or you have that people can have around money. Wiggle your toes inside your shoes, pull yourself back down. You're going to be okay. You recognize that you're safe. And then the next thing I like to train people to do is look for the space around the objects in the room where you are. If you're driving, only do this if you're at a red light, but like, look at how high the sky goes, like how much space there is above the trees. Right now, I can see my camera, I can see my computer, I can see the lights, right? But there's a lot of space around them. If you're looking at me on YouTube, you could see there's a tree, but there's space around the tree. There's space around my head. Right? If we're looking at Wendy, there's space around her head. There's space in between the books and the shelves, right? You want to start to notice those. And what you're doing right there is you're retraining your brain to focus on things it doesn't normally focus on. Like you were just saying, Wendy, like we always focus on what we don't have. By learning to focus on the space instead of the objects in space, you start to see just how much there is. And that alone starts to calm us down. We're like, wait a minute, there's a lot here. And just saying that can slow down the panic or the idea that you have to start in this repetitive action and eat the cookie or just shop. And then the last thing I love to do is tell people, especially if it's sunny and if there's a beautiful moon out, this works as well. But just to notice outside how many different places the sun is touching. There's the grass, the trees, the leaves, the cars, the sidewalk, the street, and just notice that. Like it is so plentiful and it is always there and we don't even notice it. And this 3 steps, right? Wiggle the toes, look for the space, look for the sunlight or the moonlight, just see where it's hitting. All of a sudden, you're focused on abundance. That's what you just did. You just decided to focus on abundance. And when we do that, we recognize that abundance is actually a real thing. It's beating your heart. It grows your hair. It has the sun come up. It causes the wind. It's what it gives us all the rain, all the water that we need, these beautiful animals, all of the food. It's all here all the time, and it's constantly flowing through us, and that's why we're alive. And the only way it stops is when we block it. And so what happens is you start to shift into that reality, the truth of the fact that it's all here all the time. All of a sudden, that surprise bill, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to call my friend Joe in accounting. You don't know why, right? But then Joe's like, oh my God, we actually had this great job for you. Do you think you could come in an interview? And you're like, well, damn, that was easy, right? And I'm not saying it's magical like that every time, but all of a sudden ideas start to flow that you didn't have access to before because you were looking at the objects, you were out of your body and you weren't noticing what's already here for you. And the second we flip that, the brain can relax. And that's where creative ideas come in. And that's where money ideas can come in. And then this leads me to my final thought about money. And this comes from a book called The Illusion of Money, which I really love, by Kyle Cease. But in that book, he talks about the idea that we think money is finite, right? So if we're on this big, huge hike in the mountains and there's this gorgeous waterfall, right? It's just gobs of water just falling down this waterfall, right? And our hiking buddy goes over to the waterfall, fills up our cup, comes back and hands us the cup. We might think that cup is all there is. That's it. When that's gone, it's gone. Oh my God. Not recognizing the flow is right there and it's always accessible, right? You can go back and fill that cup as many times as you need. And that is actually how money works. And when people get nervous about that, or they're like, yeah, whatever. No, I've been incredibly poor. I know what it feels like to think there is no money. There are billions of dollars just inside of our conversation that have flown across the planet, that have exchanged hands, and none of it went anywhere. It didn't disappear. It didn't vanish. It's moving. It's this constant flow, just like that waterfall. And every once in a while, we jump into the flow and we're like, oh, that's really fun. And then if we haven't healed, we're like, oh, whoops, I dropped it. Right? Like, and then you jump back in, you're like, oh, it's gone again. I don't know what happened. But if we can keep ourselves in the sunshine, if we can keep ourselves in the space instead of objects, if we can keep ourselves inside of our bodies, all of a sudden that flow, you just walk over to the waterfall, put your cup in and you come back and you use that as you need. And then you go back and then you use it. And I don't want that to sound like magical thinking. I love investing, right? I love me a good sale. I love like just nurturing and loving and squishing my money. I love it so much, right? I don't love it more than people, but I do love it and I care for it. So it's not this magical thing. You have to learn how to do that, but it's not hard, right? So you learn how to do those things so you can really enjoy it and use it. And sometimes that cup lasts a really, really long time and you're just enjoying your life and loving it. And then you're like, oh, the cup, okay, time to go get some more. Then you come back. And when we start to view money like that and get that it really is infinite, it's not going anywhere. I love when they say that on the stock market, $8 million lost. It's like, it's not lost. It moved to someone else. Like somebody has it. It just moved, it's like, it's not gone. And that's the great fallacy that we get taught is it just appears. It's like, it's this fleeting. It's not fleeting. It's here.
Yeah.
It's here. You're fine.
Well, it's an energy, right? And that's, to kind of come back even to the first thing you said at the top of our conversation is, my coach talks, her entire platform is money is love, reminds me of that, just being in our community all the time, right? That money is love and love is an energy and energy is abundant. Energy is everywhere. And yes, energy exchanges hands. And I don't believe that we place enough focus or value on our energy, right? And where it is that we're putting that and not recognizing that it is abundant. It is refillable, to your point with filling up your cup. And, so many times I think that we don't allow ourselves to even believe that it's possible for us to refill the cup. We can go into a whole digression around self-worth and all of that fun stuff too. But, coming back to this, money is I always say this to my clients, like money is an exchange of love. It is where the love energy is flowing and it is always available to come back to you at any time that you choose to shift your energy into a place of love. And that love will come back. And we have to love our money, whether it's a ton of it or a little bit of it. Love the money you have. Love all the things that you have, right? Not just the people. But I think that, and I'm guilty of this too, where I'll focus on, oh, well, this month I didn't make as much as I did last month and God damn it, instead of like, holy shit,
Yeah.
but I just brought in this much income. Like, way to
Mhm.
go, Wendy, right? It's like, sometimes we play this comparison game and that is not in line with the frequency of money is love. So I'd love to hear some final thoughts from you, Sarah, to kind of close us out today and any other wisdom that you want to share with our audience.
Oh, gosh, there's so much. Wendy, you're so good. I just loved this so
Oh,
much. And I
thank
love what you
you.
just shared because I think there's so many people going through it instead of being like, "Oh, look how far I've come." It's like, yeah, but last month I went further. Right. And that is
Right.
just that constant tweaking on the way that we're perceiving the world, I think is so important. But I think, if someone's listening and they're like, yeah, right. Or which I get, like I get that feeling of like, sure, it's the inner work, ladies. Can't pay my electric bill. Right. I totally get that. And I think what I would have us all remember is that making a healthy living where you feel really good about your money and you're so excited about what you're exchanging it for, whether it's your time, your expertise, your talents, that what it really boils down to is self-trust. And if you're having a hard time finding your own self-trust, just go back and love up on your younger self for any mistakes you're still upset about, or that one time your intuition said not to sign that contract, but you did, or whatever it was, and just love up on yourself. And this idea that all of us are doing the very best that we can. And you've got to trust your past self. She was doing the very best she could with what she had. And that part of this self-trust, I really urge people, read books about money, understand how it flows through the planet. You deserve to jump into that flow. And in fact, it invites you in sometimes in ways that just will shock you. But trust yourself to find it and enjoy it when it happens.
I love that. Such good wisdom. I mean, there's like 5 other things that I want to talk to you about. Sarah, you're going to have to come back. We have so much more to talk about. So it's so good. You guys, oh my God, Sarah, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing. I love those 3 steps. If you guys need to go back and write that stuff down. I mean, Sarah, I have to tell you, I've never heard those 3 things before, ever. And I have been in this space for almost a decade and it's brilliant. I adore you. And I knew you were special from the second we met, aside from all the synchronicities you guys that Sarah and I have in our life. It's pretty crazy. But anyways, to bring our episode to a close, Sarah, I want to make sure that everybody knows where they can find you, how they can follow you. So please share that information with everyone. And also everyone listening, it's all in the show notes too. So don't worry, you don't have to write
Don't
stuff
pull over.
Right.
No, you can find me at sarahwalton.com, and that's Sarah with an H and Walton like the family on TV or the Walmart family, depending on how old you are. So sarahwalton.com. You can find me on YouTube at the Sarah Walton, as well as Instagram on the Sarah Walton. And then I have a podcast called the Game On Girlfriend Podcast, and you might be hearing Wendy on that very, very soon.
Yes, I'm so excited. And you guys check out Sarah's podcast. It's fantastic. I was just showing her before we hit record. I'm like, I bought one of the books that she talked about in one of her episodes. And it's a great, great podcast for you guys to binge because I'm in the middle of doing that myself, my dear. So thank you for being here today. I absolutely adore you.
Thank you, Wendy. Back at you, 100%.
Thank you. And you guys, I hope that you enjoyed our conversation today. As you know, with every single one of my episodes, my goal is to help each and every one of you to find your own power in the pause. I hope that you guys have a beautiful rest of your day. Sending you so much love and light always. Mwah. Bye, everybody.